All together now. Oh, yeah, a little Mason Prophet there. Uh-huh. Two hangmen hanging on a tree. That don't bother me. Yeah, that's how they tried to silence us. They tried to silence us in that moment. Um, and so listen to the song. It's a great song. You have to listen to the beginning because you find out exactly who the two hangmen are. So welcome everybody, Bosto, to one and all. Favor be upon us. Happy birthday if you got one. And everyone else, if you got something to celebrate, do it the best you can. And that's whenever you can. That's the way I look at it. So good to see everyone. Just reading some of the chat room in there. Hey, Nina, good to see you. I know you have your show today. Lost in Space, how you doing? John Price, Deborah, Chloe, good to see you. You were in here earlier. Much love to you, dear. Robert V is in the room, and Justice, and I think David Barry, Susie Q, I see you. Martin and Heidi, greetings, everyone. Brandy, good to see you. Loretta, David Barry, much love to you. There they are. I knew Martin and Heidi were in here. Mad Cow, good to see you, brother. Good to see you. So many beautiful. Hey, can't cook. Yeah, you know what? You got to listen. There is so much bad news out there. I mean, the vibe is like really a downer, you know? And I was never into downers, in the days as I was a free living soul. They called us hippies, but what did they know? We had soul and we weren't afraid to show it either. So, and there was a group of people that they were into that, and I never was. I seen too much of the down part of life as a child. And for me, it was like, well, why would you want to do this to yourself? So anyway, this is a place where we can come and celebrate a little bit and share a few smiles and laughs and learn something along the way. Good to see you. Roger, hello. Good to see you. Hey, Aunt Helly, good. What's up, Vanessa? So, the bird left. Hey, Delta, good to see you. Um, yep. Hey, Posey. So, Susie Q working in the garden day. That is cool. Well, I'll say hello for everybody. Spirit Woman, good to see you. Emperor Rex, hello. So, yeah, I love that song. Back in the day, and KC 95 in St. Louis was one of the premier stations, I would have to say. I think KOL was another one, and I think KGO in San Francisco back in the day. Yeah, great music. And Mama's Pride was a great group. Saw them many times, knew the guys. My routine back in that day had a good friend down, Dan Melcher. We were both, in the trades. We were both union drywall finishers. Anyway, Fridays were like our time when we would get off work. We would go over to Peaches Records and Tapes. And because on Fridays, Peaches always had, and typically it was Keishi that was in there. And, whatever band was playing that weekend, they were hanging out there. And so it was a really a cool time. Someone says, John says WRNO. Okay, there you go. You see, we all have those. Now, WKRP doesn't count, beloved. That doesn't count. Although I love the show, was a faithful fan of that. Uh, well, Bella DJ, yeah, Casey was one of the best back in the day. Yeah, yeah, the Smoking Pig. I mean, and for those of you who were there, the first Super Jam, 1976, Bush Stadium, hotter than hell. But man, I'll tell you what a lineup. Still to this very day, it was Fleetwood Mac, Ted Nugent, REO Speedwagon, Santana. I think Gypsy, I believe, was there. But yeah, it was a wild time. And so that's why we're here, man. We get a chance. That's time travel. What we just did. And even though you may have never been there, you were correlating in your the spiritual consciousness saying, yeah, well, you experienced that same thing. Yeah, it's cool. That's why we love the day. That's all I can say. It's just love the day. Hey, Jenny, what's up, dear? Got to get you back on, huh? Hey, Scotty boy, seen you. How you doing? Um, yeah, that was back in the days when it was really cool. Yeah. Anyway, it was kind of sad seeing the bird leave. I mean, I did my part and you know, played savior. And you know, if you're going to be savior, you have to let the flock go. That's how they're going to grow. And took them a little bit, learned from yesterday how not to set a bird free. But this time, the spirit guides led me, and yeah, so there you go. It is kind of sad though. I mean, uh, I never got attached to the bird, but I guess I did. It was quite the miracle to intervene where death was very present and see that spirit of life emerge. And over the days, which a bird's life isn't very long, so their days could be equated to years for us, but to watch them, you know, just become very healthy, very strong, and there you go. So we move on. Hey, Jack Dreaming, what's up? Good to see you. So I'm just kind of checking out the old chat room. Lots of folks going on. Music is the spirit guide. I believe that, Chief. I would go with that. Hey, Dragon Soul Fox, good to see you. Michaelis, good to see you. I see seeing birds' feathers now that I'm paying attention. Yeah, isn't that interesting? Hey, Big Al, good to see you. Say hello to Perry there. Boy, it's just a lot of folks in. So anyway, the hibiscus tea. Mm-mm-mm. Good stuff. Good stuff. It's hot here. It's summertime. Hot down, summer in the city, back of my neck getting dirty and gritty. So. Yeah, anyway. So we got some good stuff. So let's carry on, as they would say. Hey, Julie, what's up? Just got done feeding my crows. There you go. You see, I love this group, man. That's all I could say. Very good to see you. Elderberry, what's up? Little Red Haze, good to see you. And need some good vibes. So this will be a good place to come. It is. That's all I can say. It is a groovy place. You like the people. Yeah. It's like, come on in. Water's just fine. Sure it is. All righty. So when we talk about time travel, I don't know if any of you have been practicing the first experiment. I have. It's quite interesting. And I'm starting to do it whenever, like, I'm outside and I have that moment where, you're just meditating, drifting. And now I get two objects and I put both into my peripheral vision and begin to concentrate on one without losing the sight of the other. Yeah, that's pretty far out. All right. So we're going to start with the void. The void is been perceived and taught as kind of the place you really don't want to go. It's the never land of souls, so they say. Remember Beetlejuice, where they were walking by and they looked and they said, "What's that room?" And they said, "That's the room of the lost souls." Yeah, lost souls. I do believe in the construct. I do believe that is in fact. But the void, we can see voids with our telescopes. There are regions of space that are just, there's nothing there. It's just a void. Um, I think that many people fear that about death, is that they fear the fact that they're going to be in a place that, they've been told is potentially very scary. It's a void. Um, Well, let's take a different perspective on it. This is part of this study. Allow me to get out of here. There we go. All right, so this is about spiritual emptiness or the void. What is spiritual emptiness or the void? To answer this question, we must first find out if it's possible to discover its essence within our being. Since the essence of being is complete peace and stillness without reflection or any kind of manifestation or projection, could the essence of being in, and being is capital B, for those of you who are listening, the essence of being in of itself be called emptiness? We must turn to the language of symbols to convey what it means, since emptiness is a level of mind and consciousness, a level of realization that belongs to all traditions. For example, in the Vajra, a ritualistic instrument used in the Trianic Buddhism, emptiness is represented by the central dot and symbolizes as a focal point, the seed of the spirit in which everything is in a potential but static state. It also characterizes the central axis and heart of the universe. The Vajra literally means the diamond scepter or the thunderbolt. Emptiness is also linked to the creative void, meaning that it is a state of complete receptivity and perfect enlightenment. It represents the disappearance of, or more precisely, the merging of the ego with its essence, which in Western tradition is called the universal soul or the unknown God, and in Buddhism, it is called the clear light. This merging of ego with its source could also be explained as the experience of infinite space, a frame of mind that confers us with the realization of the interdependence of all phenomena in creation, an experience that bestows an incredible degree of being true to ourselves. In that, when our ego emerges with its source, truth becomes impersonal. Being without reflection, personal opinions, and judgments. Consciousness in such a case blends and becomes part of the unknown God, the unmanifested light of being. In Western Hermetic tradition, this level of attainment is called the Philosopher's Stone. So again, what do we mean by emptiness? In Christianity, it is represented by the center of the cross and the swastika, the basic principle at the center of the wheel of the universe, from which all flows and to which all returns, the center that is everywhere and nowhere. Has reality a connection with emptiness? Reality changes all the time. It moves and is transformed incessantly by the interpretation and experiences of our individual ego. Reality is part of life, as it brings the necessary changes and meanings that we all need to express ourselves. However, with the insistent changes that we all need, realities seem to change with the transformation of consciousness. It can never be fixed, never be constant, but remains limited in time and space. Reality is as fluid as water, as ephemeral as air. Therefore, in itself, can never be rooted, anchored, or possessed, since it comprises nothing other than changing appearances.
So clearly, since reality is a projection of our own understanding of something, emptiness is devoid of reality. Whoa. I mean, this is deep stuff, folks. I mean, this is class. And, some people don't like class. I get it. But for those of us, it's really something to think about because you see, my interpretation of perfection would be absolute zero. In other words, there's no movement, there's no thought, there's no reflection, there's no nothing. To be perfect is to be at perfect peace, which means no vibration. It's stillness beyond stillness. In this realm, I don't believe that that is possible. Not in this realm. However, I do believe that that may be a place of regeneration that maybe we all go back to. I can't think of a better way of basically internalizing lifetimes, epochs of time than being in that perfect state of peace, which is emptiness. It's the void. We go on. However, as the letters of the alphabet are tools to build and interpret the written word, realities are the tools that our psyche uses to interpret and understand the world around it. Our psyche translates and perceives realities as symbols. But since this process of reading and understanding realities takes place in a world of duality, ain't that the truth? Then realities belong to the world of the ego, which interprets and understands them. Hence, realities have nothing to do with the level of consciousness called emptiness or the void, since in the void there is no manifestations. Emptiness designates a state of mind, an inner level of consciousness based upon the renunciation of what one believes to be real, beyond all comprehension or lack of comprehension. Emptiness, therefore, a higher level of mind, an attunement, with nothing, with pure being that has no reflection at all. Wow. Emptiness is a state of mind, an inner level of consciousness based upon the renunciation of what one believes to be real. That in itself is dynamic. It's not static because it implies that there are trillions of realities. But what it really comes down to is you. And emptiness is beyond all comprehension or lack of comprehension. Well, if comprehension isn't the fundamental basis of thought, then what is? I mean, what is thought other than the comprehension of its environment? Emptiness is therefore a higher level of mind, an atonement to with nothing, with pure being that has no reflection at all. That sounds like vampires, doesn't it? This is the revelation that the abstract or higher mind of a spiritual man receives. He is called spiritual because his mind is open and in harmony with the whole of creation or the unknown God. Hence, such a man is empty of a personal interpretation and is in touch with the world of spirit. As he or she manifests the world of spirit within them, a new one opens up before them. giving him a new understanding of life. A spiritual man is a mystic at heart, and her mind mirrors the mind of pure being. This is really interesting. Therefore, the mind, her mind, and thought processes are enlightened. And since this transformation comes from the source of all knowledge, it automatically opens the gates of divine wisdom for either of us, any of us. Such a man is devoid of personal feelings or opinions, unless it be the feeling of deep compassion for all living things. Returning to the question of what we mean by emptiness, it is difficult to explain because it represents a purified level of consciousness in which objects and creatures are seen as transitory realities. It's kind of like sitting there seeing 1,000 IMAX theaters passing before you, but you can see it all at the same time. Because everything about this reality is transitional. It's transitory. Nothing stays the same, no matter how much we think it does. So hence we could say that emptiness in itself is the source of being and therefore formless. However, since it is the source of being, it nevertheless nurtures all realities. Symbolically, we could say that emptiness is the dark womb of creation. That's just far out, folks. So, I love this stuff. It would then be not that difficult to connect the dots and to understand that if perfection is the goal, what you're saying is no thought, no contemplation, no reflection. That's deep. I don't know. I'm sitting here thinking, all right, so Steiger, have you ever experienced that? Would the dream state qualify? Maybe not. There are parts of the dream world when you're entering it that maybe. You know, I was in a coma for quite a while, so I don't remember anything in that coma. I mean, maybe if I did some regression therapy, maybe I was on another planet. Maybe I was in another plane. Maybe I was in initiation. Maybe I was, I don't know. Does it become when you're in that moment of unconscious, or does the spiritual conscious continually be aware? And if the spiritual consciousness is continually aware, would that then not imply that if it's aware, then is it even possible to reach that state? It would imply that the real us, as the Who says, the real you, somehow just blends into everything. It's interesting. See, Justice for All says consciousness is a surfer on the cosmic ocean of infinity. Yeah, I could dig that. Yeah. Does DMT count? I don't know, Mad Cow. I don't know. I mean, I've done enough studies now, enough into the research that, those of us who back in the day were, exposed to what we were exposed to, it spiritually changes us. That's what hallucinogenics do, psychedelics, whatever you want to call them. But the primary purpose for psychedelics, hallucinogenics, throughout man's history has always been to basically of accelerate the boost into the higher realms. So I guess maybe DMT would. I don't know. Chief says, hence a spiritual vessel. See? Yeah. I'm just reading some of these. Yeah. It's interesting. All right. Let's move on to our paradox then. Abstract, beloved Abstract says, how far away are you from the real you? Are you a mile, 10 miles, 1,000 miles? If we measure distance, then we're measuring time. So this is a good question. Then it leads to that. This is why I love this coffee shop hour here, is that if we're measuring time, then, I mean, distance, and then we're measuring time in itself. So I don't know if maybe the true consciousness, the spirit consciousness, maybe it encompasses that. I don't know. In my searches, I've never found the end of my spirit. It's endless. I've walked around in the dark for hours. Probably longer than that because I potentially was in place, but I could never find any boundaries to me. How about you? I'll ask everyone in the chat room. There's quite a few people in here. Thank you for the thumbs up. Jenny, I love you. Rocket Man there. It's good. Y'all must be having another conversation there. But it's something to really think about. I mean, I've never found an ending to me. And I've searched. And I don't know if it's beyond the perception of space-time. Because when I truly get alone inside of me, I don't even know where I'm at. I can't tell you. I can't describe it. I don't even know if it's a place. So, how about you? When you look inside, do you find yourself limited? Have you found your boundaries? I'd be curious. Mad Cow says, I found no boundaries either. Yeah, I mean, I haven't. I've looked. I really have. And I keep on looking. It's endless. I was talking to the creator this morning, and, I love this speaking favor over, the all. I always tell them that, have a beautiful day in our reality. Ask them if they've laughed today. But anyway, I digress. And I said, one of the things I would like to do is have an experience that I've never imagined. It's kind of what the crossing over is like. No end, no beginning. Just potentials. You're right, Jenny. Absolutely. All right, so let's get into the paradox. I like this cat. This is excerpt 4, the paradox. You're entering into what is called in process. This means you will change a little every day for the better. The changes are almost imperceptible at first, but become more noticeable as you progress. This is the beginning of what you have hoped and waited for on some level of your being, since the beginning of your sojourn into the physical manifestation. It is a spectacular event, probably far beyond your present comprehension, but it needs time to mature. It's like wine, gotta let it mature. When you first created your present time on this time track, you were unable to study the material on this website because it did not exist then. The material contained here, it was written by you for you from outside of time as you presently understand it. What is happening to you is utterly different than what happened to you originally. You have already begun to change the past. It is by no means easy. You will need all of the help and encouragement you can get. This is the beginning for us. We are the pioneers that people 1,000 years from now will be grateful for having paved the way. Tremendous karma in the form of magnetic force will try to pry you away from these studies in order to bring you back into the original time loop. These forces are neither good or evil. They are simply a built-in maintenance system that mindlessly repairs and keeps your illusions intact. Whoa. I'm seeing Neo on this thing. Are y'all as well? Yeah. How many Mr. Smiths again? All right. We are in a cosmic playpen, spiraling around and around in an illusion of time. We have been doing this for a very long time and without intervention. We will probably continue to do it for a very long time, possibly forever. What we as time travelers are doing has nothing to do with what was happening in this present time frame. As you begin to look at this time from years or eons in the future, you will understand its quaintness. Let's continue our investigation of the third dimension. We need to delve into our 3D world a little more deeply so we can compare it with the fourth dimension. Now, the previous study, I thought, did a really good job. I mean, it expanded my world, man. Just saying. In review, we established that third dimension is outward facing, or 6 directions of out from a common center. 6 directions of out are actually 4 directions of side to side, with the additional dimension of time as forward motion, which brings into being the concept of future, past, or breath. Contrary to beliefs held in this time period, going in the direction of higher vibrations still belong to the realm of the third dimension and not the fourth. This is because vibration as motion starts from the void in the first dimension and accumulatively processes upward in vibration until the sum total of all vibration is occurred. That is interesting. In as much that we're talking, you don't hear much talk about the first dimension. I don't think I could actually point you to somewhere that said, well, they would be able to adequately express, exactly what this first dimension is. Says, for those of you who are students of astrology, this outward motion was understood by the ancients as the fundamental nature of Aries, color red, which represents the third dimension as forward or outward motion. What we now think of as forward time is also the property of the third dimension, contrary to popular scientific opinion, and not to the fourth dimension, which is backward or inward motion, backward time. This is really interesting because if you get down into this, then the fourth dimension would be a very strange place to be in by itself. When we think the direct opposite of this realm, the duality principle, I don't think we've carried it forward enough in its purest content. Because if we say that duality exists in this realm, then we have to accept now that time is part of duality. And if time is part of duality, moving into the fourth dimension, which would be the opposite of the third dimension, you tell me that time travel is not possible. It may very well be that that's what most of us do when we get over there trying to get things back together. I don't know. It is important that we establish the difference between the third and fourth dimension, because this was a major point of confusion for spiritual students during this time period. We can start by stating that the fourth dimension is equal and opposite to the third dimension. It is a mirror image in the purest sense. Every equal aspect is inside out, upside down, and backwards from one another. They perfectly counterbalance each other. They are the two opposite halves of one thing. They are the same place from opposite viewpoints. A good example of this in our everyday world is male and female. Another good example of interaction with this principle in human beings is the right and left lobes of the brain. My mind is really speeding up here on this whole thing of, skyring. We've done it. I do it all the time, and it's interesting. It takes me into another dimension, a different realm. And it's interesting because if you get good at it, you can actually see the back of your head. Huh. You see, this is why I love this time together. It causes you to think, which is a healthy thing. Your spirit is going, yeah, finally. We like it. We want some more of it. All right. A little time spent comparing elements of the third and fourth dimension is in order at this point. These distinctions have to be absolutely clear before we can venture on to the fifth dimension. I can dig this. Absolutely, I can. That tea is good. I'm digging this dimension. That's what I'm saying, baby. It says we have established that the third dimension has 6 directions of out. This would mean that the fourth dimension would have to have 6 directions of in. If we tunnel into the earth, that would certainly seem to be going in a direction of in. But as soon as we pass the center of the earth, our direction becomes out once again. Ain't it the truth? The direction of in is really a direction of through. Oh, yeah, baby. Which is actually another direction of out. How the hell do we get out of here, right? Well, Steiger, you're always an out. But know what? I want to be in. Another way of looking at this, at this, using the earth as example, would be to imagine the earth disappearing while tunneling into it. That's interesting. It then becomes obvious that you were really moving in a forward direction, in which is another direction of out. We simply do not have the ability in our three-dimensional reality to move in a true inward direction. Wow. Oh, come on, folks. This be deep stuff. The three-dimensional viewpoint is from a single point to all directions of out. In order to simulate a 4D viewpoint, we would have to establish a viewpoint coming from everywhere, converging upon a single point. To help you do this, imagine yourself as coming from everywhere in space, looking inward towards a single point of white light at your very center. Okay, I can dig that. As you converge in upon this point from all directions, you are moving in a direction of in. Yeah, I can see that. Says this concludes our exercise for now. Next time we will progress a little further in our understanding of dimensions. Well, we're moving right on, baby. This is excerpt 5, Introduction to the Dynamics of Time. At the very beginning of this creative cycle, at the moment of creation, all that came into being was created perfectly. Creation has no other choice than to be perfect. The puzzle is created by the pieces, and the pieces are each created by the puzzle. Perfection is an amazing dynamic, ever-changing state rather than the static, unchanging state of being that is absolutely ascribed to it. Well, there's a hell of a paradox right there. I was thinking about this, meditating this morning. So, we're all going to make this transition, right? We came into this realm. None of us knew what to expect. I mean, maybe some people did. I quite didn't get the full agenda, but I came into this thing like you did, and went through this whole thing. And once you're in, you're going to be going out, or are we out going in? I don't know. Maybe, but it's really interesting that you and I don't have a choice. Think about this. I mean, we're studying some really interesting concepts here. But I have to step back and say, but wait a minute, I'm enjoying this, but I really don't have a choice. Because, like it or not, I will be moving on. So, if that's the case, then it would be incumbent upon me and to my fortuitous advantage to learn these things. Since I absolutely, and you don't either, you don't have a choice. Well, none of us do. The problem is, although creation happened instantaneously, okay, we're talking the Big Bang, and again, so that's creating energy out of nothing. So nothing is something. You can't create this reality in a spark of instantaneously unless the nothing was everything. Anyway, there is a relative time factor inherent within that instant. The instant of time it took for creation to achieve a state of perfection has become all of time as we normally perceive it. That instant, relative to infinite time, can be virtually any length, depending upon the viewpoint of the observer. And isn't it true? I don't have it here. I typically have it here, but if you have a ruler, I can see the entire 12 inches, but I can also go into the micro. I can go into the millionths of an inch. And that's a whole new universe. In order to understand the dynamics of time, we need to have at least a minimal understanding of the multidimensional universe we live in. We as human beings are at present concerned with at least 5 separate dimensions. We may think that we are not aware of some of them, but we actually work within them all of the time, or reflections of them. We are most aware of the 3rd dimension because it is our physical universe we see all around us. This makes us basically 3-dimensional beings. However, we are aware of the 4th dimension also because it is reflected through our emotions. A reflection of the 5th dimension is experienced with our minds. Each dimension has its own time. We are most familiar with 3-dimensional time because we conduct our affairs by it. We are aware of the now, the future, and the past. Present time reality, as a continuous now, constantly disengages from the present and becomes the past as it moves into the future and assumes a new position for us in the present. This is 3-dimensional time. Notice that it only goes in the direction of the future, but is always the now. In three-dimensional time, we have no means of reclaiming the past, nor do we ever actually experience the future. Time for us is always the present, in forward motion. These are the conundrums, folks, that all of us have meditated on. I'm sure you have. If you haven't, then welcome to our world. I've talked about this endless times. It's a very unique, when you get to the reality in your being, that you realize, for the moment, I am trapped in the present. That's why I meditate so earnestly, with such zeal, the future, because I realize I'm trapped in the freaking present. And they tell me that this is the place that I should be at peace in. But I say, no, there has to be something more than just the present. That's just me. We go on. I hope you're enjoying this, folks. The fourth dimension is an emotional and spiritual labyrinth for us, and is in every way equal and opposite to the third dimension. Folks, that has got to be I've been there. I can just tell you, I have experienced enough in the hallucinogenics that I was in those dimensions. And when you begin to, I digress. Let's move forward. This is good stuff. The fourth dimension is an emotional and spiritual labyrinth for us, and is in every way equal and opposite to the third dimension. One of those opposites is time. Where the third dimension moves into the future, the fourth dimension retreats into the past. Holy crap, folks. And this is just a theory, but I'm digging it. I mean, contrary to popular millennialism beliefs, people who believe in the impending return of Jesus and 1,000 years of enlightenment, known as the millennium or golden age, the age we're about to begin is avatarless, leaderless, in that the return of the Christ is en masse, and as in such is a lesson that must be learned individually. This is the reason that no man can predict the exact time of his return, because it is different for each individual, and is also the reason so many people believe that they are Jesus. Well, you would not believe, folks, how many emails I get. It is available to everyone who can master the lesson of this age, which will last 2,000 years, at which time the real golden age will begin, which will last for 2,000 years. The avatar for that age will be a Christ consciousness, being greater in stature than any other ages, dealing with the appearance of the Christ. So here is my response to this, just, off the cuff. But wait a minute. In order for this to happen, there seems to have to be a transition in the three-dimensional realm. Because if they're saying that this future will eventually become the present, then that means the future can be changed, because all this is a prediction, folks. It is a belief system. I don't think it has any foundation, but everyone has their own thing about it. But still, we've got some real conundrums dealing with this. We still got time for more. Excerpt 6. The primordial dimensions. Our goal is God consciousness. It is comprised of all other consciousness in perfect balance. But what does this mean? What exactly is God consciousness? And, that's why, because I'm always the one that's going to say, well, which God? There is an original, whether it be a thought, I don't know, but it's not God. The problem is, in my point of view, man restricts the very construct of God. And so many of us look for other pronouns such as the all, source. Yeah. But I can go along with this all-knowing, unknown God. So I can dig that. I'm just adding in it. If we were in the cafe, I'm sure everyone else would step in and have your opinion. Love to hear it. All right. So the inherent qualities of God consciousness is the omniscience, all-knowing, omnipresence, being everywhere at the same time, omnipotence, all-powerful. All the gods of the worlds are this. They're all-knowing, they're everywhere at the same time, and they're all-powerful. Within the God consciousness is something called Christ consciousness. It is the quality of God consciousness as an ever-increasing capacity for universal love, which is ecstasy in motion and the interaction between two or more beings. There exists a law of order as regards attaining God consciousness. These are listed below. So, I love the term ecstasy in motion. That's really cool. And it takes two to tango or more. So we can have the ménage en trois, or we could have the quadruple. So let's see what we got to do here. The law of order. Many of you who know hermetics, you know this already. The establishment of cosmic consciousness in the current incarnation. Okay. I think we may have accomplished that one, right? I think we're abiding in that. Conscious contact with our time-traveling oversoul, the TTO, from outside of linear 3D time. I would contend potentially that if you are in a dream state or in, fluid consciousness, maybe. Okay. The birth of Christ consciousness within the safe and protected environment of cosmic consciousness. And finally, to begin to realize and manifest God's consciousness here in the third dimension. Well, here's, again, my take on this. If this is the goal, then our examples have been altered. I left that religion because it says it's a religion of love, but there's no love in it. And even when you take the definition of what they provide love is, and that's 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 8, there's no way that the God of that book could be a God of love. So I'm all for this. I just don't know the template that we're supposed to go out, because in this, the duality is that if you go with this Christ consciousness, you're taking that then from the Abrahamic religions. And I got a real problem with that. I got a whole problem that you're trying to teach me about a state of consciousness that comes from a state of death. And I'm just using this platform as our discussion. And this is what I would say to the author. I dig what you're saying here, but your constructs are still primitive. And the fact that you're still relying on some ancient Mesopotamian god. See, that's the problem when you use that three-letter word. But let's continue. As we progress through these excerpts, we will examine each of the components of God's consciousness in the belief that enlightenment through correct knowledge will bring our goal more quickly into being. I agree with that. Couldn't argue that. 100% on board with that. In this excerpt, we are going to look in much deeper into the three dimensions that comprise the third dimension, but first a little spiritual stretching exercise is in order. I love this. Have you ever wondered about how existence began? If things are in existence, did they come from something? Where did that something come from? We are told that it all sprang into existence from nothingness. What is nothingness? Where did it come from? And how did something come from it? We are told that it all came from a pinpoint of super condensed matter in the form of a big bang. Where did the pinpoint of super condensed matter come from? We are told that the universe is somewhere between 10 and 30 billion years old, less than a microsecond in relation to infinity. Why, in all of infinite time, did the universe come into creation now? We are told that man is not meant to know the answers to these riddles, and therefore cannot fathom the universe with his limited mind. And if that's the case, then it's time for a rebellion. It's time to kick out the assholes above and put a new set in. That's all I got to say. Because it leads to us, who are we? What are we? Where is it all going? Just a scant 300 years ago, you might have been branded as a heretic for just asking such questions, let alone trying to answer them. What is wrong with trying to answer these kinds of questions? Why does it seem ridiculously impossible for us to even try? Is it that our minds are so limited that we cannot try? Or is it that our minds are actually unlimited and that artificial limitations have somehow been placed upon us? If artificial limitations have been placed upon our minds, what is the nature of the limitations? And who or what placed them there? And how can they be removed or modified? What is our true potential and how can we access it now? Wow. Yeah, that ain't new for any of us. Now let's see what he has to. In the following text, the term primordial or primordial universe pertains to the earliest part of the cycle within the creative field before the stellar components of the universe were formed. In our quest for understanding of the multidimensional universe we live in, perhaps a logical place to start would be at the beginning of the current creative cycle. In order to begin to understand the concepts of creation, we need to ask two basic questions. The first question is, how can something come from nothing? The second question is, what is nothing? We can begin to examine the idea of nothing by first defining it. No thing. Nothing is the absence of something. Something. Let us use the void of outer space as an example. We will, for simplicity's sake, remove all matter from it, including molecular, atomic, subatomic, etc., which leaves us with the blackness of infinite space. We now have an instant of what could be defined as nothingness. However, far from being nothing, what we have defined is actually an unmeasurable example of something. To understand what I mean by this, let us redefine nothingness from a little different approach. If we can acknowledge that three-dimensional space is a place where a purpose in which things can and do happen, and by that definition exist as part of the universal plan of things, then the void or empty space could be considered a thing rather than nothing or no thing. If three-dimensional space is something, then a true void or actual nothingness would exclude three-dimensional space and preclude any kind of manifestation whatsoever. This means that space, as we know it, must exist in such a way as to displace or circumvent actual nothingness. In other words, space, or the infinite void, is actually a place filled with an invisible something that cannot be measured, considering that without it, all that we know as our universe could not exist, is testimony enough for its existence, whether we can measure it or not. The reason for the foregoing is the reestablishment of a universal medium that is absolutely fundamental to metaphysics. It has had many names in the past, but for the sake of simplicity, let it call the ether. This is a familiar term that is found in your dictionary. Below is a partial definition out of the American Heritage Electronic Dictionary. Ether, an all-pervading, infinitely elastic, massless medium formerly postulated as the medium of propagation of electromagnetic waves. Yeah, baby. Notice the words formerly postulated. This means the scientists of this time period discovered the ether as being unmeasurable and therefore non-existent. In other words, if I can't bite it and make it holler, it doesn't exist. We exist in what is known as the third dimension. But how would our cosmic conscious being view this? We know that the third dimension has height, breadth, and width. This means we have access to up, down, height, forwards, and backwards, breadth, and side to side, width. It is the combination of the first, second, and third dimensions that make up the third dimension. By the same token, we can assume that the second dimension is made up of a combination of the first and second dimensions. Looking through the eyes of cosmic consciousness being, what would the universe look like and how different would it be from the way we perceive it? A cosmic conscious being might view the universe in terms of multi-dimensions, which is utterly different than the way we view it. If this is true, then he would be able to see into the various super dimensions and inner space as easily as we see into the third. Not only could he see the separate dimensions, but he would be able to experience them as separate independent places as well, in the much same way we experience three dimensions here. Let us travel with him instantaneously in his mind to a time before the creative cycle to view primordial energy in its most basic form. Remember that he has access to many more dimensions than we do, at least 6, and possibly as many as 12. Let us travel with our hypothetical cosmic conscious time traveler as he travels back billions of years into the past and watch through his eyes and understand through his mind as he examines the primordial universe in its earliest moments in this creative cycle. He would see the first dimension as the birthplace of all other dimensions. He would know that here energy exists as an infinite or immeasurable point of nothingness. He would also know that there is another place called the second dimension. That is a universe of white light. Here we see an infinite or immeasurable point of white light. He knows that the positive and negative poles exist in the same one-dimensional space, but at altering times. By our standards, this would be equivalent to something coming from nothing. But from the point of view of a cosmic conscious being, nothingness would simply appear as pure energy stored in the first dimension, from which all that we know and experience in our third dimension universe periodically springs. To him, the first dimension has always existed in a state of perpetual present timelessness. Whether or not the first dimension was created by something else is beyond the scope of the present text. All right, well, we'll pick up right there tomorrow. I love this stuff. I don't know if y'all do. Obviously you do. I can see it all the time. Such mind coitus. I'm going to stay on here a little bit more because this is deep stuff. I mean, this is really deep stuff. Because I don't hear enough talk about first dimension. I don't hear enough talk about the second dimension. This is actually probably the first time I've heard it actually stated that the second dimension is pure light. Now that really begins to, and if we are truly multidimensional beings, I mean, in this construct, we are 3D dimensional beings, which means, folks, we came from the first dimension. And if we came from the first dimension into the second, which led to the third, that means I am an internal being of light. Boom, baby. And so are you. This changes the whole construct of religions, ideologies, theologies, because it would be literally impossible for us not to have the first dimension in us, which is mind-blowing. That is the place where I can create now. I know it's in me for sure. And I know that the light is in me, because I could not have the light if I didn't have the first. Wow. Whew. Okay. This is good stuff, folks. I don't care what anyone says. It's very enlightening. I mean, to me, it's transformational. It will forever transform my inner being, because now I have new paths that I can seek answers that before were kind of blocked or kind of somewhat murky. You know. Hey, Martin and Heidi. Yeah, I see that. Yeah. Yeah. Says, I saw the light beings. It's many of one, one of many. Awesome vibe. Yeah, it is. Joshua knows that, I had this thing, soul of one, spirit of many. Yeah, it's cool stuff. Mind quiz. Well, it is absolutely. Thanks, Grace. Yeah, it is fascinating stuff. It's stuff that'll help you grow. It really will. It's a dark world out there, and there's a lot of stuff on YouTube that, that it's pointing out all the fear. Folks, it's rare to see an uplifting message that isn't tied to this background. We got to separate from this. We already are. It's already starting. And we're going to go through this. We're going to be diligent on this. And thank you for the 88. I can't see the real time of everything on here, but thanks for the thumbs up. All right, man. I mean, I'm going to go out and do some deep thinking on this. I'm going to actually go and reread it again. This is good stuff. Jenny, we'll see you soon. I want to bring you on Brain Fireworks. Jenny, if you'd like to come on to discuss this would be cool. Anyone who would like to come on, I'd love to get a panel group on this. This is deep stuff. I've covered a lot of stuff on this channel. There are many other channels that's covered, but under the title of time traveler, it's like, okay, but this is some pretty interesting thoughts. Not saying it's absolute truth. I don't know what absolute truth is, but I do know this. It certainly is allowing me new conduits. Okay. We will see y'all tomorrow. Thank you all. Much love to every one of you. I speak favor over your lives. This is quite the tribe, and what a privilege to be a part of this. Anybody would like to come on, just email me, and we'll maybe get it to where Fridays we'll discuss what we went through, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, because Tuesdays is a second look, and it's not to say that we may bring a second look into this as well. All right, folks, y'all are the best. You're beautiful spirits. You really are. And that's what counts. All right. We'll see you tomorrow. Make sure to tune in to Nina the Mystic's channel, her Hump Day show. All right.